giant welcome to our esteemed guests, Lori and Kevin. Thank you so much. So excited to have you both here and to hear hear more in depth of around these trends that we identified with your help in our survey, and to get kind of get some more backstory, some context, as well as to look into your crystal ball and kind of prognosticate what this will look like in the next coming year or 2 years. So thank you so much again for your time. As Nicole said, I'm Tim Wiseman. I'll be moderating with our guests here. And as a reminder, we will, if you can open up your Q&A tab there, if you have a question, go ahead and put it in there. We will reserve time at the end to read those out. But let's get to it. Lori, if you don't mind, we'll start with you. And this is around our first issue. No surprise that during our research that AI and data leadership was the hot topic and the topic du jour. So we know that you have a lot of experience around this, especially around agentic AI, which, as I
hmm
understand, it's a system that is semi-autonomous. It can,
hmm
make plans, decide, act on
Yep.
its own, kind of like having a somewhat competent intern. They know what to do, but they don't. But it doesn't need kind of step-by-step instructions. Lori, based on what you've seen so far, what has been your experience with this
Yeah.
agentic AI in real settings? And how do you think this balance between humans and AI will evolve from here forward? Would love to hear your perspective.
Sure, sure. No, it's really wonderful to be here and thanks to Nicole, to you and Nicole, and it's great to be here with Kevin as well. So when I think about this body of work, it is moving at light speed. I mean, we are in a once in a generation time where work is really shifting and changing. And so even how I would have answered this question 6 months ago is so different than even answering it today. And so I think maybe that is the fundamental thing for everybody to understand is that the world of work is going to continue to change. And I think for me, fundamentally, the thing to think about is as it evolves, where we can really get the best value out of not only the technology, but out of our people teams, our human counterparts, is going to be being able to stay on top of where is this work fit for purpose for the technology? Where is it fit for purpose for the amazing human talents we have in our organizations? And having that constant balance, rebalance of understanding where the technology is really good and really successful, understanding where we're going to continue to use just fundamental automation, right? We all still use CRM systems that are truly just again fit for purpose for our business. We will continue to use those types of systems, albeit maybe more connected to AI, but we'll continue to use that type of automation. And then there are just things that either people want to work with people in those certain scenarios, or people are still the best at that type of work. And I think, the best leaders and the best strategists who are thinking about how to deploy these technologies are keeping both of those things in mind. I think it's going to be a constant rebalance, re-understanding, and ultimately a redesign the way we work. And so maybe my last two takeaways of this would be make sure you're staying on top of where the world is and what those capabilities and skills are, both for the humans on your team, but also for your technology. And then the second thing is the more agile and flexible we can be, the more prepared we're going to be to meet this moment in time.
Thank you so much, Lori. And Agile is one of our big themes, so we'll circle back to that. A quick follow-up, Lori, for you. You mentioned the fit for purpose. How do you go
Yeah.
about determining that? Is it a kind of an iteration, hit and miss, or wait for somebody else to kind of figure it out and then you adopt? Do you have a philosophy on this?
Yeah. So the first thing I think to really understand is what is your business strategy? Before we even start talking about technology, it's really important to understand what your business is trying to achieve from a strategic perspective, because regardless of the technology, you're going to want to make sure that whatever you're deploying, it's very clear what that North Star, that purpose is. The second thing I think to think about is what are those tasks, those repeatable tasks that where AI is truly excellent. If I'm using AI as an example, if you're thinking about AI that's fit for purpose, you're going to want to understand the tasks that AI is good at. Or if you're in an area where AI has a very specific product or service that it can provide, something like an analytics or a drafting of emails, right? These are some of the fundamentals that things like ChatGPT and others can do well. And so understanding those capabilities and the tasks that what you're trying to do is make that perfect match between the strategy you're trying to achieve, the tasks that you think AI is really excellent at, and then what are those tasks that again your people teams, your human teams are really excellent at. And so when I mean fit for purpose, it's again that redesign and rebalance of work so that the human teams are doing the work that they're really excellent at, and then you're able to deploy AI onto those tasks that AI is truly excellent at. And honestly, that's how you start to get value out of AI. If you're deploying it in a more generalist fashion and hoping for the best, you're
Mm.
probably not going to get your ROI, and you're probably not going to get all of the efficiency and productivity that you may feel you were promised. But the more specific you are about the tasks and the purpose that you're deploying that AI against, the more quickly and the more tangibly you're going to be able to see that value. And so fit for purpose is it's another way of just making sure you're getting better accuracy in the work that's getting done.
Mhm. So more targeted, more intentional. Got
That's
it.
right. That's right.
Beautiful. Thanks, Laurie. Kevin, let's in under this purview of AI, given that, as Laurie said, it's evolving and growing at light speed, and answers change about every 6 months. How are you thinking about this in collaboration with IT? So, for example, a recent HBR article mentioned they posited that HR and IT could eventually be combined into a single function. What is that looking like for you?
Yeah, that's a very provocative thesis from HBR, and honestly, I think the direction is right. Even though it may take some time for those org charts to catch up. I think the reality on the ground is that the lines are becoming increasingly blurred. And I think when you're starting to deploy agentic AI systems that are taking actions, what that means is there needs to be a focus on aspects such as data governance, workflow design, risk management, change management, talent capability, and not one function owns all of that. And the approach for us has been to build a joint operating rhythm with RT. And that involves shared roadmaps, co-ownership of risk decisions. I think HR becoming more in tune with technical constraints, and RT actually becoming more in tune with the human adoption side of AI. So that's certainly been our reality, which is a strong operating rhythm with our RT counterparts.
Not surprising that you're already moving in that direction, and I like how you say that the org charts may catch up later. Um, quick fire round here. You both seen adoption at scale, and I'm sure have some productivity gains. Thinking about, Kevin, what you just said about adoption and usage, and Laura, you mentioned as well.
Mhm.
What are one or two or three? I'll just open this up to both of you. What are the adoption moves that matter the most and have the most impact? Laurie, we'll start with you, and Kevin will grab one from you.
I guess if I continue to pull that thread I started around fit for purpose. So, for certain organizations, there are tools where the AI is built natively to do that type of work, whether it's coding, it might be marketing, it might be analytics. There are some great products that were built specifically for that task. And through some of the experiments that I've seen, when you try to force, sort of, I'll call it, square peg, round hole, and say, I'm sure it's great at this. We'll just build it, or we'll adapt it, or it's user error. What I found is that most times it's not necessarily user error, although it can be. It's usually that technology or what you're trying to deploy may not actually be for that type of work. And so
Mm,
what we see is that when you find those tools that are best suited and best fit for purpose for a type of work, adoption is so quick and so easy because the tool is good. People can actually see that velocity of that transition very quickly. When it's something that's a little more forced or maybe a little less aligned with the purpose of that tool, you find that people really, really struggle for adoption. So I think for me, that's that number one is really understanding what are the tasks and how do you make sure the technology is suited for that task. More philosophically, if I pop it up, I would say transparency, manager usage and acceptance, and then agency, people's individual agency to use when and how they use AI. Those are, I would say, kind of philosophical things that I've seen. When people have those, a great manager who's role modeling the behavior, excellent
mm.
transparency to help them understand how AI is impacting their job. And then again, this great tool that's fit for purpose. Those seem to be, that sort of best case scenario where you start to really see some great traction.
Got it. Don't force fit it, be transparent, and make sure people have agency. Pretty classic change management.
Totally.
Kevin, anything you would add to that around how to really get adoption?
Yeah, totally. Just adding on to what Lori just said, we've deployed a similar model. We're at a stage of moving from what I would say experimentation to orchestration now. And where we started was really working with teams across the organization to start identifying use cases for AI that was going to really drive the business forward. And a lot of it was on those, repeatable tasks that would really help streamline operations. And I mean, some examples are our management of our creative assets, which are many. When we looked at that use case, we actually found that. It was a process that touched so many hands and was incredibly inefficient. So it's actually helped us streamline what was quite a cumbersome process, quite significantly closer to home. We're in the pilot phase for deploying AI to give us some additional people operations muscle. In the sense that we're integrating it with Slack and employees can get answers to all the typical day-to-day questions and have it answered immediately, and actually opening a door to a ticketing system. So these are the examples of use cases that we've used, and certainly we've seen great traction in the organization. And it's really proving to be it's driven adoption in an extremely powerful way, and it's setting the foundation for some more profound shifts around the deployment of systemic of AI.
Beautiful. Thanks, Kevin and Lori. I imagine a lot of the Q&A will be around AI and AI adoption. So, but let's continue moving forward. Kevin, let's stay with you. Again, in our survey, one of the big themes was around agile leadership and agility. Now, I've been in the business for a while, and agile and agility, learning agility, that's been around for a bit. But it was ubiquitous. Every single person that we interviewed said this. And with AI, that's as Lori mentioned, first off, that's going to be still continue to be a really important and critical skill. In your work, you've advocated this concept called lateral agility. And that's the idea that really successful leaders not only have to collaborate with their own team, but cross-functionally with peers, with folks that they may not interact with day to day. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and how does that come to life?
Yeah, indeed. So, lateral agility as a concept, I first started really sort of looking at that subject and the deployment of that capability in my previous organization, which effectively had integrated a number of companies that had been siloed for over 100 years, and trying to drive that cross-functional collaboration was absolutely key. So, and my time at e.l.f., what's really impressed me is that there's been very intentional design in terms of the culture and how that enables speed and agility. So at the cornerstone of the culture at e.l.f. is a concept that we call high performance teamwork. And the origin story for high performance teamwork was, some 20, 30 years ago, PepsiCo did a study on the high performance, high potential leaders. But when they looked at the success of those leaders when deployed to certain opportunities, they were really disappointed that the level the amount of them that actually failed within those new roles. And what they had discovered is that those leaders were pretty good at managing upwards, were pretty good at directing a team, but where they fell down was in terms of that, in terms of those peer interactions and the ability to co-create value for the organization through that collaboration with cross-functional peers. So when I look at high performance teamwork at e.l.f., it really provides a simple but very profound and effective model to actually achieve what would be that capability around lateral agility. So without going into too much detail, there's really three pillars to it, and I think it's really important because this is a sort of a culture design that enables an organization. So on the one hand, it all starts with passionate relationships. When I started at e.l.f., the CEO gave me advice, and he said, in your first couple of months, that's all I want you to focus on. Get to know stakeholders across the organization at all levels. Get to know them beyond the superficial. What are their likes? What are their dislikes? What's their life outside of work? What are their passions? What are their hobbies? And really focus on building those relationships and build early trust and credibility. Because if you do that, you can then move to the second part of high performance teamwork, which is what we call healthy conflict. And healthy conflict is the ability to provide specific, pinpointed feedback in the moment that enables the success of others and enables the success of the team. And it also is about healthy, constructive debate around ideas and how we can take things forward. And you get healthy conflict right, and that ensures the third pillar, which is mutual accountability, which is we're all in this together. We have a phrase which is one team, one dream, and we have each other's backs, and we are invested in our mutual success. So that's a model that we've deployed that really helps in terms of achieving that agility in the organization. Obviously, in terms of the organization design and very intentional design around the culture, it's all been built around achieving sort of that speed. Also making sure that we, no matter how big we get, we actually maintain those capabilities that ensures agility. So avoiding many levels in the organization, avoiding management by committee, avoiding sort of 5 levels of decision making, being very clear on decision making rights, being very clear around accountability, and ensuring that there's the appropriate sort of freedom and autonomy given to teams to run. So that's a lot, but it really does drive incredible speed in the organization. I mean, just most recently, many of you would have seen the e.l.f. Super Bowl halftime advertisement that we put together in 11 days, and it was rated as the number one commercial for the Super Bowl. Most organizations take 3 months plus to actually pull that together. We did it in 11 days, and so there's so many examples of how we use that muscle to power agility.
What a great example! And yes, saw that that advert, and now even more impressed given that time compression. Kevin, thank you. I love the 3 pillars. Lori, continuing on with this agile leadership, agility, being able to make decisions when you don't have a roadmap. There is a workforce, transition component to this. You have a lot of experience there. As leaders face increasing pressure to make faster decisions with less information, with more consequence, and with more potential derailers, having to integrate more different opinions, what's the most effective way that you've seen leaders increase their, we'll call it decision velocity?
Yeah. So I think, I love what Kevin just shared because also a huge believer in it. I think the more our leaders have those opportunities to rotate around the organization, to get those experiences across all of the business lines, not only does it improve the relationships, which again, couldn't agree with Kevin more, are so critical, right? Those folks who can just pick up the phone and say, hey, we're trying to get this Super Bowl done in 11 days, right? It takes those strong relationships before you're in that moment of urgency that allow that velocity. I think wholeheartedly believe, but I also think there is a fundamental business acumen that I think has always been a part of this sort of agile leadership. That I think now more than ever, everyone has more access to information. We don't all have to be deep experts because we can use AI tools in our own organizations to actually understand how our different businesses run, who's in those businesses, what those leadership structures are, what are those key priorities and projects, and being able to get that information, whether it's through a Slack or a Copilot or name your favorite tool. Most of that information is now, even in these early days, available to many people in organizations, and so there are ways for you to, I'll call it, know enough to be dangerous or know what's sort of core and common across, and be able to use some of this technology to get that depth you need on a particular topic, or at least go find the people who can give you that next level depth. And I think, again, this technology as a key partner or collaborator in your day-to-day work has access to so many more things than we in those connections than we can all keep in our heads. And so I think it's one of those best benefits that's going to help us move faster, even if it's just helping us connect the dots faster. But I think the true value is when, all of us can take that step, understanding even a click more deeply, leveraging these tools with research and with better understanding of our own organizations. In a best case scenario, we have a rotation program like Kevin just talked about. But even in the absence of that, I think you can use a lot of these technologies to give you some of that core and common information that you then can apply to a broader decision maze that gives you some of that clarity and that speed. And so maybe the net is, take a rotation if someone offers you one, especially if it's outside of your country or outside of your business. I've always been a fan of just say yes, because you're going to learn something new, and you're going to grow in ways you never expected. And then the second thing is, know what your technology has access to help you fill in those gaps and provide some of that depth, that we all, quite frankly, can't always keep in our head. And then I would say, even just for our own learning and early adoption, understand those key tasks that not only exist in our business, but are horizontally true in other businesses, and find those common collaborators that are maybe working on analytics or working on those key marketing strategies or using coding tools to build, because these are a great place to find, again, those folks who can be those early adopters or those decision makers with you to help your company move faster in those decisions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lori. Let's shift a gear here and move a bit out of AI. And the big third theme that came out of our discussions and our research was around human-centric leadership. And so apparently there's still a need for this human thing, and the need for trust, transparency, and the ability to address some of the more difficult issues, organizationally, leadership, succession, talent reviews, coaching. So these are all kind of human-centric competencies, at least for now. So in high-growth global brands such as yourselves, how can leaders manage some hard issues with things like multi-generational tensions and cultural frictions?
Yeah, so Tim,
Kevin, let's hear your perspective on that.
yeah, I'll jump in there. So, just to give a sort of the reality at e.l.f. is that we're very proud to have a board and a workforce that is reflective of the incredible diversity and different experiences of the communities that we serve. So, when you speak about multi-generational workforces and diversity in the workplace, I mean, currently we're an organization that is over 70% women. We are over 75% Gen Z and millennial. In the US, we are over 40% diverse. And that's just who we are and is reflective of the communities that we serve. And what really is when you on the human-centric leadership is definitely key to enabling sort of the high engagement and performance of that very diverse workforce. And for us, I think what's absolutely key, and I come back to this concept of intentional design of your culture, is zero distance between our C-suite and our workforce, as well as our overall community. And when I say overall community, it's our consumer base. And there's a number of things that drive that. So for example, we're live streaming on Twitch 5 days a week, where there's zero distance to the community and getting their feedback on what's working and what's not working. Every new hire goes through a series of executive leadership team meet and greets. Our CEO puts out a very personal sort of weekly note and actually asks for sort of feedback and contributions from the workforce. We have bi-weekly town halls where there's often A&A, Ask Me Anything, sessions with senior leaders in the organization. So that zero distance concept really applies to leaders at all levels within e.l.f. The reality also is that we're a very lean and mean organization. We purposely avoid having many layers in the organization. So often that requires people leaders to be extremely sort of close and invested and engaged with their teams. And often, when something needs to be done, it means getting in the trenches and helping out and getting that Super Bowl commercial out in 11 days. And often that just practically means rolling up your sleeves and doing what it takes. So that really builds this muscle around human-centric leadership, which is incredibly important to us.
Kevin, you mentioned that zero distance from the top of the house all the way down. Do you prepare the top of the house and leaders and are you pretty formulaic about this is the cultural norms, here's our values, there'll be rotations, here's what good looks like, here's how to coach and give feedback, or is that more organic?
Yeah, I think it's a blend of formulaic and organic. Yes, we do prepare our leaders. Yes, we do have the typical courses and programs that you would find for people leaders in most organizations. We've got a program called the Modern Manager. We have VP cohorts. So we do build sort of programming around ensuring that we are building leadership capability, but a lot of it is organic. I mean, there's so much in terms of that zero distance and high performance teamwork that I previously spoke about, that it's ingrained in the DNA of the organization. It's at times it feels that it's complete. It feels like it's just a natural sort of behavior that does happen on a regular basis in the organization.
Great, thank you. Lori, he just mentioned the word behaviors. As organizations roll out AI and automation and all this potential for impact, let's talk about leadership behaviors. What are the behaviors that matter most to keep trust high and kind of mitigate the tension and the concern and the fear, or maybe just uncertainty of automation and AI? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I think, the first thing is this openness and transparency, right? And I differentiate between the two because open is, how do I share what I know and provide that clarity when I know it? Transparency, there may not be things that everybody knows in the company all at the same time. But to the point Kevin just made, how do you have that senior leadership that's setting that right tone? direct manager, we know through so many different studies that, someone's first line manager or their direct manager has a greater impact on how they feel about the culture, on whether or not they feel like they're working for a great place. And ultimately, through this type of change and transition, it's that manager that's going to provide that level of clarity and transparency at the right time so that employees understand, again, what's happening. How is this tool impacting my role? How will my job change? The faster we can provide that type of clarity and openness and transparency to people, the more confident they feel that they know when it's appropriate for them to know. They don't feel like there's, lots of things going on behind the scenes, or they're not. I mean, everybody's sort of naturally nervous, but how do you build that trust and confidence in your system that people know that when leadership is ready to share, they will share with you? You've got that transparency, openness, and confidence. So I think that's kind of one thing that's super, super important in that manager-employee relationship. I think the second thing is, how are we approaching all of this with that appropriate level of curiosity? It's not something that's happening to people, but how do we, again, bring that agency into the process so that individuals are redesigning with their leadership teams, redesigning with their IT teams, sort of redesigning with their customers, what that new world of work looks like, depending on where they are in the organization. How can they be a part of that? Early adopters, first movers, designers. Maybe they're interested in one of those, new roles that's available due to AI and agents. And so, again, how do we continue to have that transparency of those opportunities? And so, when I go back to behaviors, it's how do we show up with that right curiosity, that right learning agility that we talked about earlier? How do we make sure we're building that flexibility and agility in just the way that we're doing our work and are we willing to do our work? And then how do we make sure we've got that trust and transparency between leaders and their teams so that when these changes come, I mean, nobody likes to be surprised. And so how do we ensure that, people are seeing that sort of those tea leaves of what's coming and are able to be a part of it, and are able to shape it in some way that works.
And Lori, ultimately, this is around just building confidence around with the whole entire organization that even though the leadership doesn't know, Kevin may not know, Lori may not know, they'll share when they do, and they will tell us,
That's
what they
right.
think they know and speculate so the organization knows that, hey, we're being taken care of, someone's looking out for us. Is there an overarching theme around this, or how about just one key attribute that all leaders should be doing to help build this confidence?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think this isn't necessarily a behavior. Well, actually, I guess it is a behavior more than a skill. I think the one thing every leader should be doing is hands on keyboards themselves. It's like, how am I role modeling? How am I showing what this looks like? So if it's about AI adoption, how am I using AI and how am I rewarding and recognizing my team for doing that? If it's about learning agility, how am I ensuring that we're building time for people to practice, for people to understand what the impact is for their work? How are we recognizing the people who are building these amazing tools that we're now using, who are taking the time to understand our business and redesign? And then how can I, as an individual, because by the way, this isn't something that's happening to them. And so, how do I, as an individual, participate? I think that's probably one of the most important behaviors is what am I doing to participate in this change and in this design? And how do I let my leaders know what I'm doing to help influence and bring this sort of AI native way of working back to my business?
And I imagine as a leader, to use your phrase, to build opportunities to really encourage curiosity so that people feel like
Correct.
they're part of this.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
so let's stay on the talent dimension and thinking specifically around the future, Lori. You oversaw a lot of upscaling and talent mobility
Yeah.
in a massive global organization, and when the business requires strategy, execution at accelerated pace, this whole
Right.
agility concept. How do you identify the future skills needed for 2030 and beyond while still managing the gaps needed today?
Yeah, so I think about it in three different categories. And so, first is, again, how can we be curious about the technology? How do we get hands on keyboard to really understand those AI and agentic skills that are going to be most relevant for my business? Or how do I become proficient at those tools that are available to me in my company? Right now, much of this is self-service in many companies. And so how do I really lean in and get those AI and agentic skills and start experimenting, as Kevin mentioned earlier? How do you start getting those hands on keyboards? I think, really leaning in and intentionally understanding how your work, how your tasks can best be done, leveraging those tools that are available to you is one of the best things. All of us should be carving out time every week to just practice. And somebody said to me, but wait a minute, I thought these tools were supposed to make me more productive. I feel like they're slowing me down. And that is the secret. In the beginning, they will slow you down, right? The tool doesn't know you, you don't know it. Like, yeah, it's a little bit of a dance. And what I will say is the investment is worth it. And it doesn't take that long for you to get better and for them to get better at knowing you. And so I'd say kind of focusing in on those AI and agentic skills, huge, huge, huge. The second thing is still really understanding those human skills that really differentiate us. Empathy, curiosity. AI still can't, walk into an in-person meeting and read the room, have the relationships, be able to watch the eye contact between a couple of people on the Zoom, right? I mean, it knows you by data, but it doesn't know you in the same way. And so we still need that customer intimacy. We still need those relationships. And so continuing to foster those core skills that create that connection, that empathy, that deep listening that allow us to really connect as humans, those are going to continue to be skills that are critically, critically important. And then the third category I often think about is that business acumen. What are those business skills, the sort of analytics, the strategies, the way we start to pull all of this information that sort of rebalance again between AI and those human skills? It's all going to circle back around to what are those strategies, those practices, and that deep business acumen you need to know to run your business. And so we all need to make sure we're investing because, again, if AI isn't fit for purpose, if we're not using it in a way that best serves our customers or best serves our teams, then it's kind of AI for naught. You're not going to get that full value and you're not going to get that full buy-in and alignment of your teams across the organization. And so I try to think about it in those three different ways.
Thanks so much, Lori. I kind of like that blend of go with your strengths. What do humans do best? And while stretching new skills around business acumen and the curiosity. Kevin, for you, again, thinking about this future ready talent, what do companies need to do to get the most gains to enable future ready talent? Is it around hiring? Is it around succession? Is it the design of the organization? Where's the big leverage points?
I don't believe there's one particular lever. I think it's about building an integrated talent system that really seeks alignment between strategy, capabilities, what that means for roles, and your flow of people within the workforce. And in terms of capabilities, I do believe that if you can't clearly define the 5 to 10 capabilities that are going to set you up to win, not only now but in 12 to 24 months, then whatever you do is pretty much generic HR activity. So I always say, really sort of be very clear in the capabilities that are absolutely differential for your organization to win, and be very intentional in terms of how you continually build those capabilities. I think further to that, It's then sort of knowing sort of what are I think the most future-ready companies are the ones that can very quickly sort of deploy talent to the work and avoid those bottlenecks such as too many levels, too many layers. Be very clear on decision-making rights, looking at that job rotation, and how can we redeploy and build skills while we're in the action of work is going to be absolutely key going forward.
All right, rapid fire on this topic, and then we're going to open it up. And Nicole's been gathering everyone and curating all the questions. But before I turn that over to you, to her for that, let's talk about one last time on behavior, human-centric behavior. What's one thing that leaders should be doubling down on, leaning into a leadership behavior, and what's one that they really should be letting go of?
Yeah. Oh, well, I think what they should be doing and doubling down on, I would call it the three C's. So it's about context, clarity, and care for their teams and with their key stakeholders. And what to avoid is what I would call ambiguity hoarding and sort of the performative control that comes with it. I've typically seen in organizations, especially that are going through major change, a transformation, often when leaders don't have all the information at their fingertips, which they typically don't have, they tend to go silent when that's actually the time to double down on communications and being very clear with their teams about what they know, what they don't know, and helping sort of their teams connect the dots. That is certainly I think in these very uncertain times where we're moving at such pace, I think that's a leadership behavior absolutely to double down on.
Beautiful. Thank you, thank you, Kevin. Ambiguity hoarding. Got that one locked in. Love it. Lori, how about you? A behavior, to double click on, to lean into,
Yeah.
and one to let go.
Yeah, I think, we're in this time where it's like lead or be led. And so I would say, lean into understanding the key ways that AI is going to impact your organization. Don't let it happen to you. I think sort of own the narrative, own the understanding, understand the impacts with as much clarity as you and your organization have. I think you need to be double down on that. And including communicating it as you know it. I think being able to, regardless of where stage you're at in your company, everybody's thinking about this because they see it everywhere they turn, including Super Bowl commercials and everything else. And so the more a leader has good clarity and grasp on what it means for their organization, I think they start on that path of clarity for their teams. What they need to let go of is that somehow, they're not going to evolve or things are not going to change for their organization. I've seen lots of leaders even leave, early adopting organizations or teams because they don't want to change the way they work. They want to kind of keep it the way it's been, or there's aspects that they love about it. And so they're leaving to find those companies that are changing maybe at a slower pace. And my advice is, I know you love the depth and the expertise of the role, but stay and get a little more agile, stay and get a little more curious, and lean into it, because eventually it's going to catch up with you. And I hope folks see that sooner rather than later.
Boy, agreed. All right, thank you both. Nicole, I'm going to pitch this over to you. I know that you've been tracking what's going on in the Q&A chat box there, and that you've curated some good ones here. So I'm going to turn that over to you and have you ask our panelists some of our questions.
Yeah, let's get started. So the first one is for both of you, either one of you. Lori talked early on about staying on top of the technological advancements that are constantly shifting. So any specific practical advice on how to do that? Is there a source? Because it is changing every week. Any thoughts on that, either one of you?
I can just start. I mean, one of my favorite folks to follow is Ethan Mollick, great professor, AI leader, who spends a lot of time thinking about work and technology. And I just find him very interesting and just, what are those latest nuggets that are kind of piquing the curiosity that I want to go learn more about. And so he's somebody that I follow and lean in and listen to. I also just try a lot of different tools. So I've kind of always have Claude, GPT, Copilot, Gemini, like all sort of ready on the ready. And I do a lot of experimenting, just seeing which one works best for what I'm trying to achieve. And sometimes all of them are good, and some of them are, none of them are good. And so I would just say this, like building in this practice of practice and experimentation and just trying your work out in these different areas are just two ways that I just keep myself up to date.
Great, great. Anything to add there, Kevin, or I can?
Yeah, I mean, I work very closely with our chief digital officer. She's absolutely amazing. She's always sort of providing sort of many sources of inspiration and the latest thinking of around AI. She actually has her own Substack, and there's actually a lot of amazing content on Substack. That's kind of
Mhm.
my latest obsession. So check out Substack. There's a lot of really thought-provoking information there. And our Chief Digital Officer, Ekta, is on Substack. So check out Ekta Chopra. She's absolutely amazing and puts out like weekly content on Substack, which is kind of the latest and greatest of technology and AI.
Great. And when we send out the recording and the link, we will include your recommendations there so people can easily find them because some of the spelling of last names can be difficult. Let's move to boards for a second. So both of you really talked about human leadership and culture and what makes a good culture, those thoughtful behaviors. So how can board of directors culture, how might they mimic some of those critical kind of human-centric characteristics that lead to organizational success?
Yeah, that's a very thought-provoking question. I like that one. The board at e.l.f. is very much is aligned to the culture of the organization, and that's also been very much by design. The board itself is also highly representative of the communities that we serve. We proudly talk about having one of the most diverse boards in of publicly listed companies in all of America. In actual fact, we started a campaign regarding sort of encouraging sort of better diversity of boards across corporate America as well. And certainly there's strong alignment. I think that's incredibly important. And when it comes to topics around people and culture, our board are incredibly invested in that. Twice a year, we have very specific sort of board topics around board and culture, and we take them through the evolution of our people strategy every step of the way.
Mhm, mhm. And a question around hiring. So when you think about these four trends and everything we've been talking about today, how do you think about evaluating candidates? So what skills moving forward are absolutely crucial, and maybe which ones are no longer important that were seemed really important even a year ago? Who wants to start?
I can jump in there. So I think, again, it's really important that people are showing up with that, right? Those human skills. Again, regardless of how the technology is evolving, we still want people to be people. We still want to be, we are all part of great teams and want to be a part of great teams. And so I think those core skills around just empathy, humanity, curiosity, flexibility, agility, all the things that we've been talking about, I think continue to be really, really important. And then I think the next layer is the technologies, right? Every company, and I think this goes both ways. I think candidates want to work with companies that are rolling out the most advanced technologies because some of them may have already gotten a taste of that. So they don't want to go backwards. They want to keep moving forward and work for those companies where those technologies are available. And so, where you can find that right mix of your candidates who are really AI native, that are really learning or investing their time into learning those new technologies, can be really valuable to accelerate your AI strategies. And then I think equally for companies, our IT teams need to be thinking about what are those technologies that are truly making a difference in our respective industries, and how are you creating those opportunities for candidates to have that opportunity to work with those new technologies? And so I think keeping up and understanding what that dance is between what are those technologies candidates want to work with, and then what are those technical skills that people need, I think are going to be really, really critical to find that right balance, because neither one do we want to go backwards or forwards. We want to make sure that we're always moving forward. But again, I still think the fundamentals don't change, and they're still a really, really important part of the way people make hiring decisions.
Right. Well, I hate to do this, but we've got to start to wrap. So apologies to those of you who did not get your question answered. Feel free to email me at ndida@dhrglobal.com, DIDDA, and I will connect with Kevin and Lori and get your questions answered. And before we wrap, there's a quick QR code with a link to our Talent Trends article. And we'll also send the link around and some resources of today's reporting by email. But don't go yet. I want to squeeze a final drop of insight out of Kevin and Lori in very few words, guys. One quick piece of advice you'd leave this group with as we think about leadership in 2026. Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, quick words. I would say that we are all practitioners in the people and culture space. And I believe, to quote Charles Dickens, we are living in the best of times and we're living in the worst of times. And I think there are there's so many opportunities for us to really make an incredible difference where we are seeing a societal inflection point right now. So I think I think we are so well placed to actually to actually add significant value to organizations.
1,000%. This is a once in a generation time, and it is our time to shine and be that sort of tip of the change and really drive that forward. Do we want to lead or be led? I think many of us want to lead in this time, and it's a really cool opportunity to do so. So I would say grab it and run.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much. Clearly, leadership in 2026 and beyond won't be having the perfect answers. It sounds like it will be more constant navigating and pivoting, and happy to hear that even in tandem with HI, that human judgment, human agility, culture are still really, really key. We're grateful to you, Lori and Kevin, for sharing your perspective, to Tim for a great job moderating, and to all of you who joined us today. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kevin,
Thanks for
Lori.
having
Everyone
us.
have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.